I want to spend a few minutes introducing the next three speakers, or their presentations at least. So we, last year, 5 universities came together to start working on nitrogen management in a variety of crops. And you can see the universities there that are involved, several from Utah and Idaho. The focus of this project was to really look at improving nitrogen management in the Western United States. And I mentioned this yesterday. If you listen to the water optimization session, but this is a framework that's used a lot in the fertilizer industry. You may have heard about this from some of your fertilizer suppliers, others. It focuses on 4 R's, and those are the right source of fertilizer, the right timing, the right rate, and the right placement of fertilizer. And so it's received a lot of interest, a lot of use, but there's still just a lot of questions about what combinations of these, source, time, rate, and place, what combinations are ideal, which combinations produce the most profit, which are best for the soil, promote the best soil health, which influence water use by the crops, especially when drought is an issue in this part of the country, and which ones will have the best outcome on nitrogen use efficiency, which will leak the least amount of nitrogen from our agricultural crops. And so there's lots of questions on this, and so what we did is started some work at several different locations in Idaho and Utah to start testing combinations of these 4 areas. This is a really busy chart, so I apologize. I just want to point your attention to the green squares there. So there's 5 green squares, and at those 5 locations, so there's 4 in Idaho and 1 in Utah, we will be testing up to 18 different ways to manage nitrogen for potatoes, silage corn, and wheat, and cherries in Utah. At the other 3, so we're looking at all these combinations of nitrogen management, and we'll see how it influences water use and profit and soil health. If you look at the three locations that have the blue circles, at these 3 locations, we're doing the opposite, looking at several different ways to manage irrigation water, and then we're looking at how that influences nitrogen use efficiency and the use of other nutrients as well for alfalfa. So very large study, lots of things going on. We're going to hear from a few of the sites up in Idaho today about their sites and how they've set things up and what things are looking like, some initial observations and things like that. So this is very busy, and please do not get lost in all the details, but just quickly wanted to show you, this is a sample of 18 different strategies that we're looking at to manage nitrogen in wheat. The other crops look very similar. So the first couple of treatments are just kind of what the average producer in our region may be doing. And then we start modifying one thing at a time. So we modify the rate, modify the source, the time, the place, and then we start modifying 2 things at a time, and then 3, and then finally all 4, we'll modify all 4 of those areas, the rate, source, time, and place. We'll also have a check where we don't put any nitrogen to kind of see what influence the nitrogen has. This is just a sample of how we would set these up. So if we had those 18 treatments, we would have 4 replications of them, and we'd randomize all those treatments. And then in one replicate of all the 18 treatments, we'll do intense soil moisture monitoring. So we're installing soil moisture sensors, and we're tracking kind of water use throughout the entire season. Okay, so that's kind of the setup of the study. Related to this study, we also wanted to find or learn how producers, how growers in Idaho and Utah are managing their nitrogen. How are they currently utilizing source, rate, time, and place? So we conducted a survey. You can see there that the response that we got, and I shared some of this yesterday. So this was a nitrogen and an irrigation survey. So we had about 210 total producers that completed the surveys, and we're representing about 105,000 acres. Now I just want to share just a couple snippets from that survey. So first, we wanted to know who's applying the nitrogen. If you look at the gray pies there, the farmer himself or one of his employees is still kind of the most common person that's applying the nitrogen. So most farmers are still applying their nitrogen, but there are, if you look at the blue and the orange, light blue and orange, there's still a large percentage that have the fertilizer dealer apply it or some other custom applicator. We also asked about how they're setting their rate of nitrogen for corn, potatoes, and small grains. And this shows, if you look at the burnt orange-ish color, my pointer here, this was soil testing with a commercial laboratory. You'll see that that's used about half the time in corn, less in potatoes and small grains, but it's one of the most common methods. For potatoes, tissue testing is the biggest, not a surprise there. And for small grains, their past experience is another big factor that farmers use to set their nitrogen rates. If you look at the yellow, you'll see that it's small. And the yellow is soil testing using university recommendations, which indicates that there's some work for us to do to really make sure that we're providing good recommendations and that we are partnering with others to help get some of that information out. The next two questions, we wanted to know how much are farmers varying their nitrogen. Little concerned that sometimes we might pick our favorite nitrogen rate and then just use it all the time everywhere. I'm sure that never happens. And these next two questions show that that's probably not happening very much. So the blue here, the dark blue, would mean that they're not varying it at all from year to year. And you can see that's quite small. All the other colors indicate that they're changing it, anywhere from 25 up to over 100 pounds an acre from year to year. So most farmers are adapting to the annual conditions. Field to field, we see a similar thing. Pretty small percentage are not varying it from field to field. Most are varying the amount of nitrogen that they apply from field to field, probably because they know the experience, the history of those fields, and they understand that some probably need more or less. And then finally here, just wanted to know how many are using variable rate nitrogen. Our impression was that this might be kind of low, but this indicates that there are a significant amount that are using it. 25 to 30% in some cases for corn and small grains, even more so for potatoes. We have much less information there, but a positive sign here that there are quite a few growers that are starting to use variable rate nitrogen for these crops. The survey is much longer and has much more detail, and we will be looking at that over the next few months and hope to summarize a lot of this to simple publications, fact sheets that we can send out so that farmers and others have a good sense of how a lot of growers are managing their nitrogen in this region. With that, I'll end.